Okay, I think of a guy like Richard Dawkins or Bart Ehrman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that what they write does circulate very widely among the, outside the guild, so to speak. So, I think it's helpful, to look at responses to people like that and really, okay, here's 2 or 3 foundational things that they say. And here's what, in Dawkins' case, here's what other scientists, even atheists, how they criticize Dawkins' thinking here. Or here's a guy who went to the same school, has the same degree as Dawkins. Why is it that 2 people can look at the same set of data and come out with such dramatically different conclusions, atheism versus theism? That shows you it's not a question of who's smart and who's dumb. They're both smart.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about presuppositions. It's really about how the discussion is framed. It's really about much bigger ideas. Does it make more sense to have everything come from nothing or everything come from something? Just really big picture kinds of questions. That if you can penetrate into what a guy like Dawkins says, 2 or 3 questions deep, it's worth doing that. Bart Ehrman. Okay, Bart Ehrman says there's a handful of passages that New Testament copyists changed to create this idea that Jesus was deity. His book, The Orthodox Corruption of Scripture, and the popular version is misquoting Jesus. Mm-hmm. Let's think about the logic to that. Let's just say Bart is correct in this half dozen examples that he has in his book. Well, it should occur to you to ask this question. What about the rest of the New Testament? If Bart doesn't say those are fabricated, then there's no text critical evidence for fabrication. What about those?
Right, they actually cohere.
What about the other 100 here? How can Bart coherently say that this idea was invented when you've got 100 over here that he can't make the argument for versus 5 or 6? It just doesn't make any sense. And then you can go to the fact, well, they're text critics trained at the same, even Bart's own teacher, Bruce Metzger would have disagreed with Bart.
Right.
I mean, you can get into those discussions. So I think those things, Dawkins, Bart Ehrman, are probably 2 of the better examples that the average person in the church will see that those guys on TV. They'll run into them on YouTube. They'll run into them on a blog, somewhere, or they'll the impulse shelf at the grocery store, buying Time or Newsweek.
Right.
They'll run into those people, and so those would be my examples, the ones that people are going to actually run into and that are going to generate doubt and questions and fear with the people under your care.
And again, I think that accusation toward the Christian faith and toward the scriptures is there is obviously some truth in that. We don't all agree on everything, but that's just being human. That has nothing to do with
what Christians specifically believe is really based on a small set of very simple ideas.
Right, exactly.
Okay, why is there something rather than nothing? Does it make more sense, to have spontaneous generation of matter or an external, creation of matter? What's a better view of reality as we know it and understand it and experience it? Would he just basically sit around and do nothing? Would he have intentionality, in his head? I mean, good grief, we do. We're intelligent beings and we have a sense of purpose and things we'd like to do. Can we say that might be true of God as an intelligent personal being? And if it is, can he actually do anything? And if he can do things, well, could he prompt somebody, a human, to write something down? I mean, again, good grief, I could do that. Why can't God do that? Is it possible that God, could, come to earth in the form of a man? I mean, you start getting into these bigger, ideas. And again, if they all go back to theism, then that's the big one that makes all these other ideas, less of an obstacle. You get over the big hurdle, and the other issues just seem like smaller hurdles that extend from the big one. And the big one, I mean, we can confidently say, even people who don't believe, in our faith, can look at these philosophical arguments, and for millennia, they have said, yes, the idea of theism is just as coherent, and in many cases more coherent than non-theism. it's just a simple set of ideas. And I think if people could just sort of see that and just kind of rein themselves in a little bit and say, that's not, doesn't sound terribly unreasonable. If I accept this one over here, then why not that one?
No, that's really good. And I think what it's going to take is Christians who are willing to invest in that discussion and not be a stereotype that, reinforcing their negative views of how Christians respond to difficult questions, or if I push, well, you're going to fight back extra hard. I mean, I think the lack of defensiveness on the Christian's part in having those conversations goes a long way, that we don't feel like we're personally losing if this person doesn't just jump right on board, but we're patient, we're kind. And for some of us, it's taken us years to come along. And then, with the social media culture, we figure if someone doesn't jump on board in, 2 conversations, we're going to get really frustrated. Well, that's, really not a fair presupposition. And I love engaging in those kinds of conversations with people and just being someone who is safe to disagree with and showing them, modeling, how it is that Christians love, even though we're having a hard conversation. If we goof up, we're going to apologize for it and be the one that says, hey, I had a bad attitude there and that wasn't really, if we're trying to convince someone to be Christ-like and we realize we weren't that, then it's time to point that out ourselves. And that could be a fearful thing. We can be driven by fear, but I think perfect love can cast that out of us, and I think that's the model and example people on the other side need to see in us, where we're not afraid to be vulnerable, we're not afraid to say we don't know.
And if you don't know, at least know where you can get information.
Right.
And that'll tell you if the person you're talking to is really looking for information, looking to have a meaningful discussion, or whether they're just approaching you with some sort of like sarcastic YouTuber mentality.
Right.
There are people who say what they say, not because they're looking for information or they have a question and they really want an answer. They really want to know what Christianity is about or says about this thing. Those are the people you can really gain traction with and have a good relationship with in a discussion. The people who aren't there, again, I'm going to stand here on my 2 or 3 points, and if you can't give me a better answer, and I don't see that you're really going to try to get information to do that. If you just want to yell, well, here I am. I'll be here when you come back to me, and I'm going to ask you the same set of questions.
Well, I really appreciate just getting to discuss this with you and all that you've said and your time, your books, your work. Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and I've really been blessed by reading and listening to you and just getting more familiar. I really do appreciate you, and I just wish blessings upon you. And I'm glad to get to know you a little better, brother.
Well, thank you, and I hope the Lord blesses your ministry. It's great to find pastors who really care about raising the game, giving people content, because it's just so important. I mean, I can't overemphasize it enough. People can handle it and they want it. If you don't give it to them, they're going to go somewhere else.
Absolutely. No, that's exactly right.